What is up, guys? Eric here from Real Film Reviews, bringing you another movie review, this time for the first installment in Universal's Dark Universe, The Mummy. The Mummy stars Tom Cruise, Russell Crowe, Sofia Boutella, and Annabelle Wallis. It is directed by Alex Kurtzman, who really hasn't done anything of this scale before, so this was his first debut. And as I stated, this is supposed to be the first installment in Universal's Dark Universe of films, where they're sort of revamping all of their old monster movies, but they're all going to take place in the same universe so they can then interact with each other. Now, personally, I think the idea of the Dark Universe is really cool, but it has to be done right. Otherwise, it's going to come off really, really cheesy, and I don't know if The Mummy was exactly the right way to start. This movie tells the story of Tom Cruise, who is a reconnaissance soldier in the US military, and after discovering a tomb when he was somewhere that he wasn't supposed to be, he then sort of gets cursed and embarks on this mission with another archaeologist to sort of figure out how to break the curse, but also fight against this ancient evil that they've released. Now, it sounds like a pretty straightforward plot that should sort of have the regular steps: monster, good guys fight monsters sort of thing, but this movie is really all over the place. Performance-wise, everyone in this movie does a pretty solid job with the material they're given. I think Tom Cruise really sells the role he's supposed to have, though I think his character suffers from a lack of development. I actually really enjoyed Russell Crowe. I think he's the best thing about this whole movie, is both the character he plays and his performance as that character. The film had really awesome sets, and there were aspects to the story that were really interesting that you could tell they looked into some details to sort of add extra oomph and extra real supernatural feeling aspects to the film. However, not all of them worked, and some of them did feel like they were kind of pushing it more and more to try and keep the story interesting. The film did have good special effects, and really other than that, there's not much else good about this movie. As I said, I enjoyed Russell Crowe and I enjoyed Tom Cruise, and I didn't really think anyone in the film did a bad job, but this movie really suffered a lot from a lack of character development. No one in this movie is developed enough that I really care about them. I'm obviously not going to spoil anything, but there are certain instances in this film where things happen to characters and other people barely react, and as the audience, it makes it even harder for us to think we should care when people in the movie don't even act like they should care. The movie had way too many jump scares, and it was trying to have this horror-esque vibe that just didn't work. They should have entirely embedded itself in action and suspense, but instead it was trying to be scary when it really wasn't scary at all unless you were like a small child. And then to go along with that, Kurtzman direction is not very good. I think it's clear that he's never handled something of this size, because every action sequence in this movie is either really poorly filmed or it's really poorly lit, so that way it can be filmed well, but it's really hard to make out what's going on. And that's even more of an indictment against him, because you have Tom Cruise, who is one of the greatest actor stuntmen alive, and you still didn't feel confident enough that you could set up the choreography to film these fight scenes in a manner that they were interesting. All of the big moments in the film that should have sort of felt like, wow, that's crazy, that's so cool, how is this happening, really just don't feel earned at all throughout the script. So when they do end up happening, it's sort of just like, oh yeah, that looks kind of cool. Like, you're not really blown away or excited by it. You're just like, well, it looks pretty impressive, but in terms of the story, not really sure why this is happening right now or what led up to this moment, really, because it just sort of happened. And that's the big thing. This movie is really just sewn together, and I mean that as a pun and also not as a pun, because it really just does feel sewn together and sort of wrapped up with this like, ooh, we got cool action sequences here and here and here. Let's just sort of weave a little bit of story in there so we can get to the next big action set piece, and hopefully that'll keep people interested. It invests in the universe, which I have to give it credit for. That's what Russell Crowe's character really is in this movie, is the universe that they're trying to build. He's a huge part of that, and I thought they did that really well. I really liked his character. I really liked his performance. I liked the aesthetic that they gave him and the whole thing that he's a part of in the film, but all the rest of it just felt so undersold. All of the action action and sad or emotional moments need to carry more weight, and you need to build more of a story. This film definitely invests in the idea of building a universe, but it didn't invest in building a story for the characters in this film. And I just don't understand why, because they had talented enough people that they could have done it if they would have just wrote the script, but instead it's just sort of action scene to action scene to action scene, and whatever's in between normally doesn't really matter that much. It's just kind of there to get to the next one. Even though this film has a good pace and you're never really bored, you're still bored because the momentum isn't there. You're not supposed to be. If you were to look at the time between action in this film, you'd be like, this isn't a boring movie. But when you sit down and watch it, the boredom begins to set in because it never builds momentum and there's no more weight added to action that happens throughout the film. Each scene carries the same amount of weight, which is little to none. I'm gonna give The Mummy a C-. While this movie I think was definitely a letdown for both the Dark Universe and for anyone that's a fan of monster movies, there were glimmers of what could come in the Dark Universe and what could be good about it, which is why I gave this a C- instead of a D+. I really feel that as a movie it deserves that, but the work they did to build a universe is what earned it that C-, which obviously isn't saying much because it's still not a very good grade. Well guys, as always, I'm Eric. If you enjoyed this review, please do like, subscribe, comment down below what you thought of The Mummy, share everything we do here on Real Film Reviews, and hope to see you guys later.